Hi friends, and welcome to hopefully the first video in a series of videos that I'll be making for you here on my Patreon. This first one here shows me designing a character following my own character prompt list that I made a while ago. I'll be talking about just my general process a little bit and what I'm doing in this video, but if you want me to talk about specific things in the future, just let me know. I'll be putting that character generator in my Patreon post and the description of this video, so you can try it out if you feel like it. As you can see, I wrote down who I was drawing in this video: a furball person with background as a knight, smug personality, and an otherworldly guardian at their side. Now, for this character creation and character design, I decided to just go with the flow and start on drawing without much planning and sketching beforehand. I like to do that every now and then, because it's extremely relaxing and very low pressure on myself to come up with something that is extremely new and interesting. Because that's often the problem. I feel like that it is easy to put a lot of pressure on yourself when you sit down to make a new character and you're hell-bent on making them interesting and visually unique, and I tend to get kind of lost in detail and ideas, so I don't even give myself much time to think with this one and just go right in. As you can see, I don't spend much time on a rough sketch or anything like that, but just go right in. Here I use another layer to sketch out the arm position, trying to figure out what works best before merging it down with the base layer that I've been using before. You will see me do that a lot of times. I like to work on 1, 2, 3 layers maybe, not much more. I feel like using many layers isn't very helpful for me, because I do a lot of the planning mentally. It happens in my head. I'm luckily blessed with a very clear mental image most of the time, so the first stages of my design happen only in my head. You can see by now that my sketch line art is not extremely messy. I try to work clean right from the get-go when I try out this method. And a really professional character designer will probably not recommend what I'm doing here. A lot of people usually start with silhouettes and many rough sketches to figure something out and not go into all these details that I'm putting in already. That is fair and good. I'm trying to get better at that and not settle for the first thing that comes into my head. Admittedly, that has been a bit of a problem of mine, but just drawing for fun here, so no pressure to make something that is perfect in any shape or form. Looking at it now even, this drawing is from not too long ago, and I already see a lot of stuff watching right now that I would do differently about it. And that's okay. That's a sign that I've learned more, or that my style has slightly changed, that I've moved further as an artist. So that's actually a nice feeling. Here I'm putting in that otherworldly guardian I've mentioned earlier that I rolled up for this character. I went for something kind of strange looking with this masked face on top of a spectre-like figure that floats along this night. I hope in the future to maybe make another kind of character creator like that, because I've seen a lot of people use it and a lot of people have made really wonderful, interesting characters using it, so that made me really happy. I myself have not gotten around to use it that often because I rarely have problems coming up with things. I have far too many characters at this point already, and making more is not something I struggle with. As you watch me, you can see I flip my canvas back and forth almost non-stop. That is so that you can notice anatomical or just overall mistakes better. Your brain gets used to looking at a picture in a certain way, and if you change the direction, so mirror it, you actually notice things that are off far easier. So I made a little key shortcut on my keyboard to keep on doing that over and over again, pretty much all the time. Here I go into coloring. I like to use kind of darker, medium gray background to work on so that the colors are not just in a white vacuum background, because then often you paint things darker than they would actually be, and depending on what kind of background you then want to paint in, that might cause some trouble. This one won't have a background, but I still got accustomed to it. It's also less straining on the eye than having a full white background to stare at the whole time. And I'm quite sensitive to that, so I find it to be way nicer. You can also see that I tend to not zoom in very closely into my art while I'm working. I usually tend to work at maybe 30 or 50%, so not zooming all the way in. So I just keep track of the overall image instead of losing my focus on teeny tiny details that won't show up anyways when I post my work online. For me, that has alleviated quite a lot of stress. A lot of artists tend to zoom in really close on their work and render every single eyelash basically, which to each their own, of course, but for me that caused a lot of pressure of perfectionism and just needing to go in closer and closer and closer, and in the end I had to realize that most people will not see my art as up close ever as I do when I'm working on it, even if it's printed. So I stopped worrying about that a while ago. You can also see that when I paint, I don't work with different layers for shadows and light. I paint everything onto one layer, and I like to work with shadows that are darker shades of the base color instead of maybe using a black multiply layer on top of the colors. A lot of people do that, and it can be a really cool process. I do want to try it out a little more in the future, but for me so far it hasn't really felt right. I must admit that I forgot and stopped recording at the very end and kind of lost that bit of final rendering with the black background and a bit of chromatic aberration that I'm so very fond of. I'm sorry for that. I'll try to do a better job of that in the future. But I hope watching me and listening to me a little bit was still insightful. And for future videos, you can let me know what kind of topics you would like me to talk about, what kind of things you would want me to show or teach you, and I'll gladly try to do my best. So, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think, and till the next time. Goodbye, friends.